The chapter begins with the declaration that the woman is Vegapunk when is a bewildering development. Hearing the declaration, the crew is surprised and chattering with each other about it. Vegapunk finds it annoying and says, "What a fracas." Frankie tells Vegapunk that she is his role model. He then talks about his past where he spent 2 years in her hometown, Baltimore. Frankie then tells her about his experiences at her lab and says, "After going through your lab, there was still a load of stuff I did not get a chance to look into." He calls it a giant mech of his dreams. Usopp says, "Just how many times is the robot bigger than General Frankie?" and expresses that he can't wait to show it to Luffy and Chopper. Sanji, meanwhile, calls her a stunning lady. Vegapunk, hearing their words and them calling her role model, is confused and unable to grasp it. Robin, however, says, "Just a moment. This is the first time I have heard of Vegapunk being a woman, and she looks far too young. What is making her suspicious is that the girl looks too young while Vegapunk has been active for many years." Dr. Vegapunk replies, "Who said this was the main Stella body?" She says, "You are looking at Punk 2 Vegapunk Lilith." Dr. Vegapunk Lilith says, "In any case, we always run through our research funds in a jiffy, so she will allow them to skedaddle if they just relinquish their valuables." Nami yells at her words and says that these waters are chilly enough without her being cold too. She yells that Vegapunk just fished them out, and what kind of rescues does she calls it? Vegapunk replies yelling too, "Are you deaf? This is not a rescue!" Lilith says that trespassing on the waters is not possible as any ship that comes here and resists gets destroyed by her army. Lilith soon reveals her army to the entire crew and says, "Take a look at the sea weaponized breasts." Most of the crew members start panicking as she calls her army unable to comprehend what's happening. One shouts, "They just popped out!" Frankie, who is not panicking, says, "Weaponized sea breasts are rad." Usopp says that his fear is overwhelming his awe. Zoro is not panicking while Nami is crying in panic. Meanwhile, the crew is panicking. Somebody calls her saying, "Farah." The person who is calling her is Shaka, who says, "Lilith, what are you doing?" He questions her why does she always insists on looting and tells her to have some pride as a scientist. Lilith tells Shaka to put a sock in it and asks him, "Can your infernal pride keep the lights going on?" Shaka informs her that she is dealing with the Straw Hat Pirates, a newly dubbed Emperor crew who is not going to meekly surrender. Lilith says that they must have a heap of treasure stashed away. Shaka warns her that even so, she made a foolish blunder. Lilith replies that she has not made a blunder as she has them surrounded. Shaka tells her to not underestimate them and points her attention to the swordsman. Lilith looks at the crew with wide eyes. Shaka then tells her about the pirate hunter, Zoro, whose bounty is more than 1 billion, and tells her that he is looking so calm because he knows she is in the range for him to end her in an instant. Lilith looks at Zoro in confusion while Zoro looks calm. Shaka then says that the same goes for Devil Child Nico Robin, who is looking calm. Lilith expresses her view that what the crew can do against the sea breasts. Shaka exclaims that the strong can appraise their prey and prioritize the most essential targets first, and tells her that she should have been more cautious. Lilith realizes that the imbeciles around the crew have lulled her into a false sense of security and accepts that she was careless. At the moment, Zoro informs Dr. Vegapunk that there is something they want from her, and tells her Tat she would better play nice. Shaka agrees to consider the crew's demands, and asks Lilith to bring them here as he has interest in that crew. Meanwhile on the Egghead Island, Luffy asks Bonnie if she has been here before. Bonnie replies that she visited the place when she was a kid, and it was still a pretty run-of-the-mill lab at the time though. Luffy then asks her that how come she came back here. Bonnie tells him that she is here for the answers, and I will have a bad life if I don't like what I hear. As the group is making their way up to the island's surface, Bonnie reveals that Vegapunk is the one who turned her dad into a cyborg. Luffy finds it awesome. Vegapunk tells him that it is completely not as his father lost his sense of self, and he does not even know who he is anymore. He is nothing but a living weapon now. Luffy calls it awful and exclaims that it is really unforgivable. Luffy then says sorry to Bonnie. As they reach the surface, Chopper says, "We have made it to the surface." Nami and Frankie are tired off climbing. Luffy is happy reaching at the surface and says, "Let's track down some grub." Bonnie then remembers that she forgot to mention that she ran into Spo at Mary Joy's, but she decides to spill the beans later. The crew is left surprised seeing the theme park on the island, and one of the crew members exclaims, "What is all this stuff?" One member says, "That is it, a giant robot?" The crew finds all sorts of things there, from the robot to a space monster. Jinbei expresses that, "What is the world?" The other crew member says he will be back after he takes one for a ride. Bonnie says, "Remember, we are infiltrating this place." Chopper asks Luffy to take care while Luffy slingshots himself towards the monster like a rocket. It seems like the monster has eaten Luffy as the monster's open mouth has now closed. Chopper and Bonnie are shocked and yells, "Luffy has been eaten!" However, Luffy has not been eaten but harmlessly passes through the monster and is knocking in the air before colliding with the ground. Jinbei asks Luffy if he is okay. Luffy says that initially he thought he got swallowed, but he is unable to complete his words because Bonnie interrupts them in between yelling, "Is that a giant parfait?" pointing their attention to a direction. She says there are cookies and fruits too, and look at all that cream. Luffy, Bonnie, and Chopper jumps towards the meal, thanking for the meal. Jinbei, however, stays behind and says, "Hold it. Why would they leave food lying around?" and calls it a trap. As the three falls on the food, they screech, landing harmlessly. Luffy, Bonnie, and Chopper are even more confused as they reach towards the food. Jinbei observes all this, looking confused too. Luffy exclaims that, "What is this?" as they went through it. Chopper says that how can we see it but not touch it? He chomps and says it is so cruel to make them hungry like that. One of them says, "Did we die earlier and not notice?" Bonnie replies, "There is no way we are ghosts," and realizes that though she has not seen one before, but the parfait must be a hologram. Luffy, hearing these, rages in fury and says it ticks me off. Bonnie explains that it is a 3D image made of light. You see them in comics and science stuff. Luffy looks at the space monster and realizes that he went through it because it is a hologram too. Jinbei then says that the giant robot must be one too, as nobody can make something like that. Chopper then notices a machine and asks, "What is this?" He notices that all the buttons have pictures of food on them. Bonnie replies that she has given up already, as everything on the island is a sham. Jinbei then exclaims that this reminds him that the seas around the island were freezing, and someone would expect this place to have the same climate. But considering the place to be a winter island, the environment is set to tropical mode in here. At that moment, a tall girl appears and says that with her island aircon invention, you can specify and regulate the temperature of an area right down to the soil. Luffy says the girl is as big as Kaido, and thinks that she is a hologram too. Thinking the girl a hologram, Luffy attacks her, which angers the girl, and she punches him back, saying, "Take it!" Following the punch, Luffy knocks in the air, exclaiming that he is sorry, and slams onto the machine Chopper was looking at, causing a beep sound. As Luffy clonks onto the machine drops something. The machine starts creating food, lettuce, tea, burger, fries, start dropping in. Bonnie grabs the food and then exclaims that she can touch the food and it is real, with hunger dripping her tongue. Bonnie, Luffy, and Chopper feasts on the machine's food, calling it so good. The three tells each other to press the next one. Different types of food drops from the machine. Observing this, the tall girl says, "Well, at least you appreciate my work," and tells them that it is the unmanned device. It can turn raw ingredients into one of 500 unique dishes in under a minute. The tall girl tells them that the make do with what you have got mode is the best. The tall girl then expresses that she cannot be too happy since a lack of competent engineers means that this bucket of bolts cannot be mass-produced. Is following the blueprints damn hard? The tall girl then says it really pisses me off and that the island aircon is in the same boat. Its sensors can monitor living creatures, and it could tame the weather if she had a bit more money. The girl has endless ideas but not enough resources. In her frustration, she punches the hologram monster, which surprises everyone. She explains that she has photonic gloves which allow her physically interact with light. A new hollow fizzles life into a girl with P28 on her top. She gives the tall girl a high five as the scientist explains something is only real if you can perceive it. But touching a projected object turns that on its head, does not it? Luffy, while eating food, says so that girl is not real? The tall girl turns angry and says, debates on what makes something real are as old as time. It is something you have to decide for yourself, but I consider the matter settled. Jinbei asks the tall girl who she is. The tall girl says that she is their resident, scientific genius for hire, Dr. Vegapunk Atlas, Punk 5. Everyone is shocked and Bonnie says that the girl is lying. Luffy exclaims that he has heard the name Vegapunk as Kobe told him about her. Now we cut to the oceans, a new world, where a ship is sailing. Aboard are the CP0 agents Rob, Lucci, Stussy, and Kaku, wearing white outfits. Kaku tells Lucci to just keep listening, as he tells him that Vegapunk is technically still a single individual. Kaku tells Lucci that his genius is second only to his business and has not enough time. Kaku says to Lucci, "You say they say you are a busy beaver, right?" Lucci says imagine as there were more than one beaver. That was his grand idea to split up into 6 people. In other words, all 6 of the satellites are also Dr. Vegapunk, as he split himself into 6 satellite bodies. Kaku is holding a paper on which the 6 satellites of Vegapunk are mentioned. Punk 1, Shaka, whose trait is logic. Punk 2, Lilith, whose trait is evil. Punk 3, Edison, whose trait is flair. Punk 4, Pythagoras, whose trait is wisdom. Punk 5, Atlas, whose trait is wrath. And Punk 6, Yoke, whose trait is desire. Lucci says that he feels like the weird one for being only one, thinking that it impossible and how geniuses are such a pain. Lucci says that their mission is to first return the Seraphim, the problem child, back to the Egghead Island. Kaku says that they need to take care not to damage any of the lab's precious assets, as they are here to eliminate every last Vegapunk. Lucci says that they are meant to kill the single most useful man in the world, and wonders if this has something to do with the recent Lelouchia incident. Stussy says, someone with instincts like yours should know better than to question these things. Kaku agrees to Het and says, don't get us in any hot water, Lucci. They have made a calculated plan. The chapter starts with Bonnie, Luffy, and Chopper finally stopped eating with their stomachs swollen up. Bonnie calls the food delicious and satisfying. The other 2 are satisfied and holding their stomachs. Atlas, seeing this, says what is keeping everybody and bets that they all love the food machine except Sanji maybe. Atlas says, you guys sure can eat, and comments that all 4 of them have bulging bellies now. Jinbei says that his belly was already like that. Suddenly a sound woof can be heard. The sound is of a mechanical dog called as the Recycle Cur, who utters the voice woof while eating up the trash. Atlas waves her hand as she goes back to her work as if she does not go. No one will go. Luffy also waves his hand in response. As Atlas leaves, the group watches her thinking what kind of job is that she does. The group then notices some other people walking around, and one of the crew members exclaims, who are they in confusion? Bonnie replies that it is safe to assume that they are lab assistants of some kind. Jinbei exclaims that this looks odd as the place seemed deserted a second ago and asks, were they hiding because they were not sure about them? Jinbei's attention turned towards Luffy, whose clothes have changed. Luffy exclaims that the clothes feel so light, and they are nice and breezy too. Bonnie asks him, where did he get those? Luffy points his finger in a direction where there is a fashion machine, another of Dr. Vegapunk's attention, which generate clothes. Bonnie says that nothing beats free clothes after a complimentary meal. Shen. This says that her clothes feel sticky from all that seawater, and it would be nice to change. She uses the machine to generate a battle uniform. She transforms her clothes and exclaims that the clothes are light and the boots make her feel like she is floating. Jinbei changes a tropical shirt and exclaims that the machine has tropical styles too, and these would make for perfect disguises, but expresses that it is probably too late for that. Chopper also changes clothes and finds his clothes futuristic. Bonnie says that she's going to find some weapons and deal with Vegapunk, and she will catch them late. Just as she is about to leave, someone yells, heads up. Luffy sees the man and thinks the man is Kuma, and he is coming towards them wearing a police uniform. Before they could do anything, Kuma starts attacking them. Kuma opens his mouth and fires a laser beam. He then states that provisions and garments are reported stolen, and he has detected thieves. The group, while trying to save themselves, realize that the stuff they took considering free was not free. Bonnie is standing there with her eyes stuck on Kuma. As the laser beam is about to attack the crew, one of the crew members exclaimed that if it was not free, why did it pop out like that? Nobody has the answer. At that moment, there is a boom. And the next moment, Jinbei is knocking in the air, yelling that the damage he is causing is surely worse than what they did. While they are unable to fight back, Luffy questions, "Is Kuma trying to kill us?" They express that it is a bit harsh for theft. Considering it is a laser beam, Luffy expresses that they will be toast if they do not fight back. Jinbei says that they should fight back, considering it a self-defense, and reminds them that they are pirates. As Kuma is charging on them, they decide to fight back, considering that they have got no choice. Kuma is still charging the crew with laser beam. Luffy in anger decides to attack Kuma. Just as he is about to attack Kuma, Bonnie kicks him to stop him. Her kick lets Luffy knocking in the air, giving Kuma another chance to launch a massive laser beam attack. The attack does hit the pirates, knocking them about and also causing proper damage. Luffy, who is bashed on the floor because of Bonnie kick, yells at Bonnie for saving Kuma and says, "Did not you see her lasers?" He yells that he was about to slug him, but she kicked him off. Bonnie does not respond to her as she is facing hard time breathing. A beep sound can be heard as Kuma is about to launch another laser attack. At that moment, Bonnie, while crying, reveals that Kuma is her father, leaving everyone in shock. Luffy shouts, "What?" Bonnie says that he is the only family she has got, leaving Chopper's eyes to become wide. Jinbei realizes that when she was telling him that her dad turned into a cyborg, she was talking about Kuma. Again, beep sounds come and Kuma is about to charge at them. Bonnie begs them to leave his dad. Heavy tears are flowing down her eyes as she begs the group to not hurt her father. She then remembers a past memory of her and her father where her father is holding her daughter and playing with her. Bonnie yells, "My daddy!" However, just as Kuma is about to charge on them, Luffy yells at her, "You dummy! Get out of there!" and then attacks Kuma, telling her that it is just a pacifista. Kuma fires a third and final laser and the entire place is engulfed in light. The tree shakes and ground crumbles away, and that is where we leave our heroes for the moment. Meanwhile, in a certain sea in the New World, Blackbeard Pirate's ship is sailing above the ocean. The weather is harsh. The extreme blow of wind and massive waves are causing the ship to lose its balance. Still, the ship is somehow balancing the harsh conditions. Beneath the ocean surface is the Polar Tang, the ship of heart pirates that has been ambushed by the Blackbeard pirates. The ship is in a bad condition as air bubbles are rising from the ship, making it clear that there are some holes in the ship. A man shouts, "It is no good, Captain!" The man is trying hard to cover the leakage to stop the ship take on water. Law expresses that another hit from Blackbeard and the water pressure will crush them. He orders the members to surface the ship and they won't be able to escape. He tells them that there is land northeast of here. All of a sudden, Law transforms into a woman. Law orders them to prepare for battle and be quick about it. The crew members call the captain cute, saying they are sorry for what they said. Some say, "It got me too," and advice to keep away from the infected. One of the members says his powers are contagious, hoping to disorient them with this forced gender flipping. Law, listening to their comments, yells that he will be fine though. Law tells them that his clashes with emperors taught him that devil fruit powers can be countered if you use a great deal of hockey. He basically means that gender flipping is a part of their plan to attack Kurohige. And soon, the rest of his crew start turning too. As everyone tries to get a grip on the situation, the ship surfaces, and Law turns back to normal. As the crew reach land, the doctor of the Blackbeard pirates, Doc Q, comments on how Law managed to nullify his disease, and he expects no less than a pirate worth 3 billion. Doc Q says, "That is how diseases go. An antibody always come along, and when one person finds a remedy, it is not long before everyone is cured." As it turns out, Doc Q had eaten the sick fruit, which allows him to craft and spread any kind of sickness. He says that it was entertaining, and he called this one the Ma Lady Transformation Plague. Also with him were Van Augur and Burgess, both of whom consumed devil fruits as well. The Warp fruit for Augur, which allows him to teleport people, and the Buff fruit for Burgess, which gives him inhuman levels of power. Augur warps Burgess to the island, where the latter picks up a mountain to throw at the Heart Pirates, exclaiming that, how would they get in front of them? A blip sound can be heard following with a snap sound, making it clear that there is somebody in the woods. This is what Law realizes. Law and other Heart Pirates are making their way out of the forest, where Law realizes that the Blackbeard Pirates have numerous strengths, including superhuman strength, bizarre contagious, teleportation, and others. These guys have hunted down some insane powers. No wonder their bounties keep rising. As they see the mountain above their head, they yell, "It is going to crush us." Law orders them to move and make a room, and the mountain collides with ground, breaking into smaller pieces. Law has managed to destroy it. Law observes Doc Q sitting on his flying horse about to launch an attack on him, exclaiming that it has been a while. Law unsheathes his sword and places it in his direction, and while breathing heavily, questions him that what does he want. Doc Q is sitting on his horse Stronger, which had consumed the mythical Horse Zone fruit model Pegasus, that gives Stronger wings. Kurohige greets Law as the latter demands to know what the former wants. Blackbeard states that he knew one of the 3 Straw Hats would end up on this particular island after leaving Wano. But he had no way of knowing which of you would show. Meanwhile, Stronger says he is struggling to carry their weight with his condition extremely worse. Doc Q then says, "With Big Mom and Kaido gone, the world is going to turn on its head and it sounds fun." He laughs out loud. Law gazes at him with anger and muses that is that any way to speak to a fellow member of the worst generation? Doc Q questions. Law that Kaido had one, did not he? He tells Law that he suspects he claimed Kaido's road poneglyph, and that he plans on taking it off his hands. Law replies that he took the words out of his mouth. Law accepts Kurohige challenge, saying let's settle this. The winner takes all.